Good morning, boys and girls. The last few weeks, really since beginning of December, we've been talking about Jesus coming, and he came as a baby, and we've learned about Christmas and what's happened with the wise men. Well, afterwards, only thing we knew is that Jesus and his family went to Egypt to escape King Herod because he was looking for them after the wise men. But eventually they did come back and they lived in a little town called Nazareth. And we know Jesus grew up, but we don't know much about it. And we know that he probably got bigger and bigger, just like all children do. And we know that he would have grown in learning. He would have grown in learning about God and learning probably at the temple and synagogue. But that's all we know. We just are kind of guessing. The only thing we do know is there is a story in the Bible that we're going to learn today. The only story in the Bible that tells us about Jesus as a child. And the story takes place when he is probably about 12 years old, somewhere around a 6th grader, 7th grader. Okay, so let me tell you the story. When Jesus was a little boy, his family moved to the town of Nazareth. They came back from Egypt and moved to Nazareth. Jesus grew up, we were sure, doing all the things that little boys do. I'm sure he played games with his friends. He probably went to school. His daddy was a carpenter, which means he worked with wood and made things. So Jesus probably learned how to make things from wood too. But every year, Jesus traveled to Jerusalem, we assume, we guess, to attend the Passover feast, which Jewish people, even today in the year 2021, still do. This was a religious holiday and a special ceremony. Joseph, his daddy, always took part in the celebration. And Jesus knew that one day he would be a grown man like Joseph, and someday he would go to Jerusalem and visit the temple as a grown man, because the temple was for the grown men, where the teachers were, the special, highest level of teachers, meaning like the ministers, the rabbis, the leaders who taught about God, the very best ones, the ones that knew the most, were in the temple with a capital T in Jerusalem. Well, finally the time had come. Jesus was 12 years old. That meant he could go to the temple, into it, and take place in the Passover feast like the men. So Jesus and his family traveled all the way to Jerusalem. It took many days. They didn't have cars back then. So it was about 64 miles. That would be at least 3 days, 4 days. And they went in a big, big group. They would travel because there was robbers and wild beasts. They would travel in a big, what's called a caravan of other people and families, probably from Nazareth. I'm sure a lot of them were Jesus' relatives, lots of cousins, uncles, aunts, all kinds of people. They probably walked along, played games with their friends as they walked for days and days and days and days. Joseph and Mary would have seen many of their friends in Jerusalem. It was a beautiful city, and everyone was there to worship God. Well, after the festivities, it was time to go back to Nazareth. But as they headed home, Joseph and Mary, Jesus' mom, noticed someone was missing. It's like, where's Jesus? But there were so many people and so many relatives and just hundreds of people probably. They thought he was walking with his friends because he walked with his friends probably the whole way when they were getting there. He was with his friends the whole time. He was 12 and probably was just hanging out with them as he walked. But after they traveled the first day, the whole day, maybe they wanted to have him come sleep in the tent with them. They realized, oh, he's not there. They probably were like looking everywhere. Where's our 12-year-old? Where's our Jesus? And everybody's looking, they're going, not here, not here, no. And probably his friends are going, no, we haven't seen him today, no. Oh my gosh. So they realized, we must have left him back in Jerusalem. Oh my gosh. But where would he have been? Can anybody guess why? Where he was in Jerusalem? Where could he be? Why wasn't he with everybody when they left? So they'd been gone for one day. They had to turn around and start coming back. So one day out, one day back. They got back on the third day. And when they did, they're searching everywhere going, oh my gosh, have anybody seen a little boy? He's about this big. He's about 12. And maybe they were describing what he was wearing. Well, finally, after being probably out of their minds with worry, Joseph and Mary found Jesus. He was in the big temple, the big one in Jerusalem, this little boy of 12. He was with the big teachers of the law, and he was asking them questions. He was the only child. There's all these men, all these big important people. It seems Jesus had loved learning and listening so much in the days that they were there with his dad. He had just stayed. Everybody else had left and gone home. He had stayed because he hadn't finished learning. He wanted to hear more and more and more. Everyone there was amazed at how much he understood, too. The priests and the rabbis were going, he understands what we're saying, and he's asking us amazingly adult questions. And he apparently even was telling them things that they hadn't known, like, well, yes, but this means that God, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they were just like this, all the grown-ups. Well, Mary said, Jesus, we have been searching and searching. What are you doing here? Why are you still here at the temple? Oh my gosh. Jesus surprised him with his answer. He didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, Mama. I lost track of time. Oh, I'm okay. I'm sorry. No, he looked at her and he said, why were you looking for me? Don't you know I have to be here in my Father's house? Jesus knew that God was his Father and that the temple was God's special house. When Mary and Joseph heard this, they realized Jesus was growing up, and you remember that angels had told them that Jesus was the special Son of God. And now, and they may not have told him because they wanted him to be a little boy first, and they were just trying to make him good. But they realized he was beginning to understand more and more about his heavenly Father. They knew it would not be long before he would be a man. But he wasn't a man yet. He was only 12 years old. So they took him home. Jesus traveled back to Nazareth, and he obeyed his parents and was so good. We know Jesus helped the family. We know that because of who he was, and was a good son. Jesus worked along with Joseph and learned to be a carpenter. He made his mom and Joseph very happy. Such a good person. Jesus was indeed growing, but not just in his body. Jesus grew in 4 ways. He grew in wisdom, which means understanding about good things and the right way to do things. He grew physically. That meant he ate good food and exercised and became strong and big. He grew spiritually. That meant he learned to love God more and more. And he grew socially. That meant he learned how to make friends and how to treat people nicely in the way you need to treat people. He learned this from Joseph and Mary, and he became as good as he could be in his human body, because Jesus knew that one day he was going to have to do a special job on earth for God. And that ends our story today. And because in the Bible, the next thing we hear about Jesus, and we'll hear next week, is when he realizes, God tells him, when he's a grown-up, now, Jesus, now's the time to start. Okay, let's bow our heads and say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for the gift of your Son. Help us keep him at the center of our life, and please do not let us ever leave him behind. Amen. All right, children, hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.